Hello, welcome to another Tonalist Landscape oil painting demonstration. This is your painter in residence. I'm Francis McCarthy, and the painting I'm bringing you today is a limited palette demonstration of Cadmium Red. Cadmium Red, take a bow. Yay! We love you, Cadmium Red. So useful. Such a pretty color. Just so you know, like, the board I'm painting on is like a pine, bit of pine ply, a nice smooth pine panel. Blah, blah. Can't say that 5 times fast. And what I've done is I've gone over the pine with 2 coats of transparent gesso, and then just kind of rubbed it down with some oil paint and a little bit of oil prior to starting my painting. And this has been working pretty good throughout most of the studies that I've done here. The only downside is I can't really erase, but let's talk about my history with Cadmium Red. It is not very long. I started using Cadmium Red last year, and that was as a kind of a reaction to getting into Cadmium Yellow, Cadmium Orange, Cadmium Red. The Cadmium Red has been very, very, very useful because it has that opaque component, which really I can throw it into a green mix, and it's still green, but it's got kind of a reddish feel, and it's a feel that you can only get with Cadmium Red. It's very seldom that I use it, full strength, like I will be using in part of this painting here. By the way, the pigments being used in this painting are Mars Black, which is a synthetic black pigment, an iron oxide. Titanium white, we all know you, we love you, and cadmium red. And I'll be reading you some technical information about cadmium red shortly, so you can stay tuned for that. We won't belabor it, but so it's kind of good to maybe throw this stuff back into the depths of your unconscious, Yeah, so as I've stated before, I did start painting initially with cadmium yellow, but got away from it when I got into using lead white because in fact, I've even read it in my recent researches that it conflicts, and basically the colors will go brown if they're introduced to each other, the lead and the cadmium. Also copper, so that would include phthalo green as a copper color, yeah, which I only know because I've just recently done some research on it. Yeah. Anyway, what I love to do is, like, I've got a green tree, and if you know me and you know my work, my greens are full of all these other colors, usually oranges and browns. Some of them are only green in the context of the painting. If you were to take the color and put it in another place, you would go, oh, it's brown, but it can totally read as green in the context of other colors. And one of my, if I have a lot of greens though, I do love green, I use green, and I've got a ton of strategies for mixing greens and applying greens, since there's so many of them in the landscape. One of my favorite things to do, I'm going to give you a little tip. Even though you're not in the members area, I'm going to give you this sacrosanct tip, okay? What's totally awesome to do with Cad Red is you got your tree, it's all painted. You just go in and smack a few dabs of red in that. Just do it. It's subtle, but it'll give your painting a zing and life, and almost no one, I guarantee you, is going to go, hey, why'd you put the Cad Red in the tree? I don't make no sense. Is that an apple? Not trying to make fun of slow people. Anyway, hey, by the way, in this painting we're watching right now, I just did a portion of, I've been trying in every one of these studies to do a spot that was 100% of that color, and that would be the area just below where my brush was, right there on the ridge of the trees, and that is 100% cadmium red. And I have to say the cadmium studies were easier to pull off than I did the last one today, just so you know, which was phthalo blue, and that was very challenging. Maybe even more so than the phthalo green, because it's so transparent, and you can't really, and it's so dark looking out of the tube. You don't really get it to reveal its identity until you add some white to it. In the case of the phthalo blue or in the phthalo green, you add a little yellow, you start to see what its possibilities are as a color out of the tube. I mean, you can paint with that, but once you start brushing it out, you're going to see the color of your backing, whether it's just the canvas or other paint colors that you're painting over the top of. So anyway, yeah, red's been with me for about a year. I would really hate to lose it. I could almost give up alizarin crimson instead, because I could always get a color very similar with black and cadmium red. It would be opaque, but opaque pigments really have their uses, especially if you're working in a direct manner, and they're pretty cool. And one thing that I'm going to be coming out of this project that I've done is with an enhanced appreciation of opacity and what it can do for me and my painting process. And one of the things that I love about painting, and so some of you don't know this, but I'm in my mid-50s. Yeah, I don't know how much longer I'll be on the planet. Maybe 5 years, maybe 20, maybe 30, maybe I'll make it over 100. But let's be realistic, that's probably not in the cards. But however long that time is, I know for certain that I will be learning about painting right up until the day I die, because it is that vast of a subject. It is that vast. I'm sure probably music is the same way. When it comes to music, I'm way less educated than I am with art, and far more intuitive. But I mean, I do good music, but it's all seat in my pants. It's just, I always, as a musician, I compare myself to a blind sculptor. Anyway, let's stick on the topic. I know you're getting ready to leave, getting ready to skedaddle. We're at that. Well, actually, most people, I don't know when they take off. 5 minutes, 6. I would have lost you already. But I want to get into some little scientific. I found a pretty good. I was kind of groaning because I've already done 2 cadmiums. I was thinking, oh, what am I going to find to read about? What did I find? I found 2 things. Yes. This is from the Winsor Newton site. I like this because it's a pretty cool article, at least what I've read. It's like Spotlight on Cadmium Red. WindsorNewton.com, UK articles, colors, Spotlight on Cadmium Red. Think of the color red, and it's most likely you will find yourself thinking of the big emotions. That's why artists like it so much. Red is an extremely dominant color that even a small piece in a painting will catch your attention. It is the color most often associated with powerful feelings like love, passion, and anger, as well as heat, fire, and blood. Cadmium red is a very strong, warm, and opaque red. And in the early part of the 20th century, it became a natural replacement for the distinctive but toxic vermilion. Vermilion was made with mercury, by the way. Yeah, so you don't want to be getting that in your body. Cadmiums, which is also really poisonous. Not as poisonous as mercury, though. Cadmiums have the broadest range of hues derived from any of the inorganic pigment groups. These hues range from a pale to golden deep yellows, light fiery oranges to deep ones, through light bright scarlets, deep reds, and maroons. And I just sum all that up with a yellow, an orange, and a red. If I was in a pinch, I could make the orange. Yeah. Cadmium is moderately soft, silvery white metal with a melting point of just over 700 degrees. Cadmium compounds have been used as a source of color since the discovery of cadmium in 1817 by the German chemist. I guessed 1800s yesterday. Or it wasn't yesterday, last video. Friedrich Stromja. It was Stromja who first recommended the use of the bright yellow cadmium sulfide in artist colors. Although in 1809, George Field, whose chemical color work was highly influential at Winsor Newton, mentions cadmium yellow for use in watercolor. Cadmiums became more available to artists after the commercial production began in Germany in the 1830s, so it's much older than I thought. Winsor Newton showed cadmium yellow at the 1851 Crystal Palace exhibition. During this period, cadmiums, although expensive, were highly valued for their permanence, brilliance, opacity, and mixing capabilities. And you know what? They're still expensive. This is a great article, man. Moving into the red. It was sometime after the introduction of cadmium yellow that cadmium red began to appear. The early reds were made by heating the cadmium yellow together with selenium. In a 1919, a patent was registered for the production of cadmium orange and cadmium red. So they're 20th century phenomena. The yellow you had, not the red. Well, see, we're learning a lot. That's great. The method for this production was to mix cadmium salt solutions with alkali and alkaline earth sulfides, and in turn to heat the resultant precipitate. Wow, big words. For those of us who might not have been paying attention in the chemistry lessons, a precipitate is a solid material or collection of particles that is left in a solution after a chemical reaction, and not surprisingly, the process itself is called precipitation. Oh, well, that's probably enough of that. We love it. We absolutely love it. It's so great, isn't it? Yeah, you got to be careful with the old cadmiums, though. Don't eat any. I recommend even like extensive skin contact. You should really get it off you, in a pretty, timely manner, I would think. They're way more poisonous than the lead, which is why I crack up that gambling, won't do a lead white. They'll give you a lead white hue, flake white replacement, they call it. And what is their solution? Their brilliant solution is to add zinc, which cracks even in small amounts. If you paint thick with white paint that has zinc in it, it will crack, especially if it's on canvas. So don't do it. Just don't. But they got no problem making cadmiums in their factory, which are, super, super poisonous. Really poison. There's nothing more poisonous on your palate than the cadmiums, just so you know. But apparently it's a safe it's a safe alternative to vermilion, which is, like I said, mercury. It'd be awesome to play with some vermilion one day, but I don't get don't get the wrong idea with this series. I'm very, very passionate about my pigments, and I like to know about them. But I'm not the kind of guy that's going to go digging up bits of dirt and adding oil and making paintings out of it. I know some artists like that, and good on them. Whatever gets you inspired, I say, is awesome. But for my part, I'm content to buy my cadmium red from the most economical producer with the best quality. And I was thinking I was gambling, but so far I just got a tube today from a different supplier. That's about half the price, so I want to see if they're bulking it up with some marble dust. You didn't know that, did you? A lot of paints, the cheaper paints, they bulk it up with marble dust. Yeah, and the funny thing is with the cadmium, it's so strong and so opaque, you could probably get away with adulterating it quite a lot before you'd even notice. It really is strong and opaque. And that was one thing I loved playing with this in this painting. Anyway, I can see we are getting very close to the end. Thank you so much for joining me today. Tip on over to my site, check out my store, buy a painting. You could send me a donation if you're getting value from all this. That really helps me. It helps me buy tubes of paint, I'll tell you that. And otherwise, thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate you. And until I come back with another video, please do me a favor. Take good care of yourself, your loved ones. Be patient with others. And stay out of trouble.